People often ask this question, sometimes sarcastically, sometimes curiously, sometimes with pain in their heart. Why are pretty girls so crazy? And every time I hear this, I smile because the answer is not as simple as most people assume. The truth is, beauty is not just skin deep. Beauty is a curse and a blessing. And when you really understand the psychology of attraction, attention, validation, and power, you will realize that what the world labels as crazy is often the byproduct of how society has conditioned beautiful women to live and think. From the time a girl realizes she is beautiful, she enters a different world. Every man looks at her differently. Every woman compares herself to her. Every interaction is filtered through the lens of her looks. She gets attention before she even opens her mouth. She gets offers before she even expresses a desire. She is given shortcuts in life that most people never get, and at the same time, she is deprived of the most basic human necessity, genuine love without conditions. When you live in such a reality, your mind begins to warp. Pretty girls are often called crazy because they can't stay consistent. One moment they are sweet and charming, the next moment they're volatile, unpredictable, and emotionally explosive. But you need to ask why. Imagine living in a world where people never loved you for who you are, but only for how you look. Imagine every friendship, every relationship, every opportunity coming with strings attached. Imagine men falling in love with an image of you, not the reality of you. It drives you to a place where your emotional balance is shaken because deep down you feel unseen, misunderstood, and disposable. Now, here's the bitter truth. Beauty accelerates life. It gives early validation, instant gratification, and false power. But with that power comes emptiness. Pretty girls get so much attention so early that they don't develop patience, resilience, or emotional intelligence the way an average-looking girl might. They are rewarded without effort, and when the world stops clapping for them, they panic. That panic is what many men call crazy. It's not really insanity, it's insecurity, it's trauma, it's the collapse of an identity built on attention. But let's go even deeper. A pretty girl doesn't just deal with validation, she also deals with envy. Other women hate her for her looks, men desire her for her looks, and she is stuck in the middle. She feels isolated, she feels used, she feels like an object, and sometimes she embraces that objectification as power, but other times she rebels against it violently. This rebellion is seen in extreme mood swings, toxic relationships, drama, and self-sabotage. Again, people call her crazy, but in truth, she is starving for authenticity in a world full of superficiality. The darker side of being a pretty girl is that men project fantasies onto her. They expect her to be perfect, angelic, submissive, flawless. And when she fails to live up to that illusion, they call her toxic, manipulative, unstable. But think for a second. If you were constantly expected to be perfect, constantly told you're a goddess, constantly put on a pedestal, wouldn't you suffocate under the weight of that pedestal? Wouldn't you eventually break down, lash out, or start testing people just to see who loves you for real? This is why you see beautiful women involved in chaotic relationships. One after another, men chase them, worship them, spoil them, and then abandon them, disappointed that their fantasy didn't match reality. And every heartbreak makes her harder, colder, more defensive. So the next time she tests even harder, she manipulates even deeper, she tries to control the outcome because she is terrified of being discarded again. From the outside, it looks like madness. From the inside, it's survival. Now let's add another layer. Beauty has an expiration date. The world doesn't tell men this as often, but women are reminded every single day that their looks won't last forever. Pretty girls are praised endlessly when young, but as they age, they begin to lose that spotlight. And because they built their identity around beauty, they feel like they are disappearing. This fear of irrelevance makes them insecure, clingy, dramatic, and yes, sometimes crazy. It's not insanity, it's the desperation of someone losing the only currency they ever had. But don't mistake me, not every pretty girl is doomed. There are women who recognize the trap early and build their self-worth beyond their looks. They invest in their mind, their soul, their purpose. Those women are rare. Gems because they refuse to be enslaved by beauty. But the majority fall into the cycle: validation, attention, power, emptiness, breakdown, repeat. So when people ask me, why are pretty girls so crazy? I tell them they're not crazy. They're human beings living inside a distorted mirror. They are victims of society's obsession with beauty, victims of men's fantasies, victims of women's envy, and victims of their own early power. What looks like craziness is often trauma disguised as attitude, insecurity disguised as drama, and loneliness disguised as rebellion. But here's the challenge for men. If you ever want to love a beautiful woman, you must see beyond the face. You must be strong enough to handle her storms, patient enough to peel back her layers, and wise enough to love her in a way the world never could. Because the truth is, most men aren't strong enough. They chase the pretty face, but they run from the chaos. They worship the goddess, but they abandon the human. That's why the cycle continues. That's why pretty girls spiral. That's why people call them crazy. And here's the challenge for women. If you are blessed with beauty, do not let it be your only asset. Because beauty fades, and when it does, the only thing that will keep you sane, strong, and respected is your mind, your purpose, and your character. The sooner you build those, the less crazy you will be when the world stops giving you attention. Maybe the next time you hear someone say, pretty girls are crazy, you'll pause and think. You'll realize that crazy is not the right word. The right word is wounded. The right word is conditioned. The right word is human. And maybe, just maybe, we'll stop laughing at their madness and start understanding the pain behind their mask. Because when you strip away the makeup, the filters, the designer clothes, and the attention that follows them everywhere, what you find inside most pretty girls is a scared little child who never really got to grow up at her own pace. She was thrown into adulthood the moment people started treating her differently for her face, not her mind. She learned early that her worth was transactional, that compliments were currency, that validation was survival, that attraction was power. And when a human being grows up in a world where her humanity is constantly overshadowed by her appearance, she begins to live in two realities: one where everyone desires her and another where nobody truly knows her. That conflict eats her alive. And then comes another layer. The men who chase beauty are rarely the men who can handle it. Most of them want to conquer it, not care for it. They compete with each other, flaunt her like a trophy, and discard her when the novelty fades. That constant cycle of being adored and then abandoned creates emotional whiplash. She goes from the highest highs of attention to the lowest lows of rejection, over and over. Again, her nervous system becomes addicted to the chaos. She expects drama, she attracts drama, and when life feels too calm, she almost creates drama just to feel alive. And outsiders call that craziness, without realizing it's conditioning, not character. See, beauty is dangerous not because it makes a woman powerful, but because it makes her misunderstood. A pretty girl rarely gets to show her raw self. If she is vulnerable, people assume it's manipulation. If she is confident, people assume it's arrogance. If she is quiet, they call her stuck up. If she is expressive, they call her dramatic. No matter what she does, she is trapped in labels. And after years of being labeled wrongly, she begins to play into those labels, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. That's when you see the so-called crazy behavior. But let's go even deeper into the psychology. Pretty girls are exposed to temptation at a scale that most people cannot imagine. Every day, someone is offering them something: attention, gifts, money, status, opportunities. They live in a world full of shortcuts where integrity is constantly tested. Imagine being a teenager and men twice your age are ready to give you the world just for a smile. Imagine the confusion, the temptation, the distortion of values. By the time she is an adult, she's already seen the darkest sides of human desire. That kind of early exposure leaves scars that surface later as mistrust, suspicion, or even paranoia. And here's the paradox: many pretty girls become control freaks in relationships. They test, they provoke, they manipulate, not always because they want to, but because deep down they fear being powerless. They fear being just another disposable beauty. So they hold on tight, they overthink, they dramatize anything to avoid feeling abandoned again. And men, instead of understanding the psychology behind it, label them as unstable. But what else can you expect from someone who has been treated like both a queen and a commodity at the same time? Think about friendships for a moment. When a girl is average looking, her friends usually see her as just another person. But when a girl is strikingly pretty, even her friendships carry tension. Other women may secretly resent her, compete with her, or use her as a prop to get male attention indirectly. Over time, she learns that not even her closest circle is safe from envy. That's why many pretty girls act guarded, suspicious, and even distant with other women. And then people call her antisocial or arrogant, when in reality, she has learned the hard way that beauty isolates more than it connects. Now take the workplace. In professional environments, a pretty woman is automatically judged, sometimes favored unfairly, other times dismissed as just a face. If she succeeds, people whisper that she slept her way to the top. If she struggles, people assume she's incompetent. There is no winning for her. She constantly has to prove herself against biases that are built on her looks, not her skills. That pressure builds frustration, and that frustration often comes out in emotional reactions. But once again, society labels those reactions as crazy instead of seeing them as exhaustion from constantly fighting invisible battles. Romantically, the dynamic is even harsher. Most men who pursue beautiful women are not equipped to handle them. They approach her with admiration, but beneath that admiration is often insecurity. The man thinks he wants her, but the moment he gets her, he starts to feel threatened by the attention she receives, threatened by her power, threatened by his own sense of inadequacy. That's when controlling behavior starts. He tries to clip her wings, limit her freedom, monitor her every move, and in response, she either rebels aggressively or submits until she breaks down. Both reactions look unstable to outsiders, but in truth, they are survival mechanisms in a relationship that was never built on trust, only on possession. And let's not ignore social media's role. In this digital age, beauty is magnified. A pretty girl is not just admired by her circle, she is admired by strangers worldwide. Every like, every comment, every DM feeds into her self-image. But the more validation she gets, the emptier she feels, because deep down she knows it's shallow. She becomes addicted to attention, but also resentful of it. She hates being objectified, yet she can't stop feeding the machine because her identity is now tied to that validation. That internal conflict is one of the biggest reasons why she seems emotionally unstable, because she is torn between craving attention and despising it. And what about family dynamics? Parents often unknowingly reinforce the cycle. A pretty daughter is praised for her looks more than her achievements. Relatives compare her with her siblings. Suitors approach her earlier than they should. She becomes the center of family pride, but also family pressure. By the time she's old enough to think for herself, she has already been treated like a prize, not a person. That's why so many pretty girls struggle with independence. They were never allowed to just exist as normal human beings. So at the end of the day, when people casually throw around the phrase, pretty girls are crazy, they reveal more about society than about those women. What you call crazy is actually the visible symptom of invisible wounds, wounds created by constant objectification, envy, shallow love, false power, and a lifetime of being valued for appearance over substance. The truth is, beauty is not the problem. Our obsession with beauty is. If we want to change this cycle, we must stop treating women like ornaments and start seeing them as human beings with depth, dreams, and dignity. And if you are a pretty girl listening to this, remember, your face may open doors, but only your mind, your character, and your purpose will keep you standing when those doors close. Don't let the world reduce you to a mask you wear. Build yourself so